Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Coming up, in the United Kingdom, 7,055 people died by suicide. 74% of those were men.
270,000 lives lost so far this year. A desire to make a difference to the lives of other people, because I know how desperately lonely it can be when you're in a dark place, and I want to help other people get out of that place.
Walk and talk therapy. What does that look like? You're listening to The Hurt Locker, the podcast that opens the door on men's mental health. We've looked through the archives, the producer and I, Tim, and constantly the themes that come up about well-being and one's own welfare, the importance of exercise, the importance of eating, sleeping well, the importance of being out with nature. So this episode is going to be slightly different. We're going to talk to Stephen Hall of Stantor Therapy, who, as a therapist, focuses on those real-life things. Stephen, welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Thank you very much, Yinka.
How are you today?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, a little bit under the weather. I've had a bit of a sort of problem with my chest recently, which has limited the amount of time that I've been able to go out into the hills and spend walking. But I went to see an acupuncturist today, and I feel an awful lot better having done that.
Tell me about that. I've never had it.
Have you not? I really like it. I first had acupuncture about 10 years ago now, when I was really struggling, when I was first struggling with my mental health.
Okay.
And then I used it quite a bit when I was doing my training as a way of keeping things balanced and just allowing the whole idea of energy to flow through the body rather than things getting stuck. And I think especially when you're working with clients who certainly when I was training, I was focusing on addiction recovery. So a lot of trauma clients, a lot of addiction clients, and holding, as you well know, the stories of your clients can take quite a lot from your own energy.
100%.
And acupuncture at that point really helped me to just allow that to kind of flow through. And I used it alongside meditation and around cold water and stuff. But yeah, recently, because I've just been feeling under the weather and had this stuff on my chest, I made a decision to go back and see an acupuncturist again.
Okay.
I think it was definitely the right decision.
Okay, we may turn back to that. For the benefit of our listeners, who is Stephen Hall?
Who is Stephen Hall? Stephen Hall is a man who cares about mental health, a man who cares about other men and wants to help other men to be the best version of themselves, which is why I do the work that I do. Stephen Hall's also a father. I've got two wonderful kids, a daughter who's in Liverpool at vet school.
Okay.
And has just finished her second year and is back home at the moment, which is lovely. She's on placements. So that's fantastic. And my son, he's 18. He's just finished his A-levels, literally just come back from a camping trip with his girlfriend. But yeah, my kids are really special to me. They're my hug monsters.
Okay.
That's why it's really nice having my daughter back as well, because I get extra hugs from her every day. And my wife, Kate, we've been married for 28 years now. She's a teacher. That's how we met. I was a teacher as well. So,
thank you for sharing. So we're gonna go here, there, and everywhere a little bit. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
In terms of your work, when Tim first mentioned it to me, he says you do a lot of walk and talk
if I may, I can kind of put a bit of context into why I came to walk and talk therapy.
Yes.
Before I trained as a therapist and during COVID, I was I worked volunteered as a mentor, and I worked with teenagers who were in care homes and in foster care. And I also worked for another charity working with veterans who'd been medically discharged from the army and were transitioning to civilian life. And with both of those groups of people, I recognized that when we were sat down facing each other, whether it be in a coffee shop or over lunch, conversations wouldn't go very far. They'd be quite transactional in their nature. And I recognized in particular with the veterans that there was absolutely no point in one guy with PTSD sitting opposite another guy with PTSD in a coffee shop with noises and going off all the time and doors banging and people coming and going, and both of us being hyper vigilant to everything around us. And so even before it became compulsory over COVID, I switched to working outdoors with them and going for walks instead. And what I found was that conversations flowed more naturally. We were shoulder to shoulder rather than face to face. So there was no sense of interrogation or of challenge.
Yes.
And then you add into it elements of being out in nature, forms of exercise, walking side by side, which in itself helps to process ideas, because we process things best at about 3 miles an hour. So that natural walking flow just really helped for those conversations to take a different direction. And we just made a lot of progress.
With the majority of the people who you started doing the walk and talk with, were they men in the main?
They were, and in fact, I was deliberately marketing everything towards men. But actually, I have found that the women who approach me specifically want to do walk and talk. So I don't work with any women online. I do work with some men online. But all of the women that I work with, and at the moment I've got 3 women that I see on a regular basis, they specifically wanted to work with me because I do walk and talk as an approach. And they naturally, one lady absolutely loves nature, another lady loves being by water, another lady has got an incredible history of caving and climbing in Nepal, and is now in her 80s, but still loves walking.
Yes.
So it has been interesting that an area that I never expected to become a part of the work that I do, but has actually attracted women to work with me as well.
And the reason why I asked that question was because often what I've picked up with men is that we engage in a different way. And what I mean by that is that, as you say, it's not transactional, looking at each other, as it were, but walking alongside without that fear or pseudo fear of being judged.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's the same when we're with our kids. That actually the best conversations with the kids happen when you're in the car.
Yes.
And you're side by side as well. I mean, I spent some fantastic time with my daughter on her gap year, and we traveled around Kenya together and Tanzania together, and just had the most amazing conversations on these really long journeys as we were traveling through Kenya. And it was because we were side by side.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot to that. Can I ask you, when you became a mentor, what propelled you to do that type of work with veterans? I've worked with veterans myself. I have my own reasons why, but you know, you've worked with kids in care as well. What drove you to do that type of work, or did it choose you?
No, I don't know. I guess it's a bit of both. I used to be a teacher. I was a teacher for over 20 years, and when I gave up teaching and when I left the profession, I was working very much on my own, and I folded my business, and I knew that I wanted to be doing something, working alongside other people again, and having that one-to-one connection. Because when I was teaching, it was actually those developing those relationships that was really important to me.
Absolutely.
And what's been really fascinating for me since I started writing on LinkedIn, and I publish a newsletter every month on LinkedIn. Since I started doing that, the number of my ex-pupils who are now in their 30s who have got in touch with me and sent me messages, and some of it is in relation to some of the stuff that I write about, but a lot of the time it's just reminiscing about what their experience was of me.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the earliest conversations I had, I think it was after I published my first piece, was with a real rogue
Okay.
who would get into a lot of trouble at school. And he said to me, "You're the only teacher at school who treated me like a human being."
You know, I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. It's about connections.
Yeah.
You know, it's literally about connections. And too often people are cast aside too early without
Oh yeah.
knowing what their background, what their story is, what's happened to them,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I'm doing some work in a school at the moment, and I just started working with a young lad who isn't a bad lad at all, but he's getting into a lot of trouble at school.
But
Um,
there's going to be a reason for that.
exactly, there is a reason for it. I was talking to his mother yesterday, and it was suddenly she I've literally just started working with him, but she's just said something about his history, and it was like, right, okay, now I get it. Okay, I know where we when he's ready can
Yes,
start talking about it and start exploring
yes,
actually, right, what's going on there, because these are things. And then in the first conversation with him, I knew that he wants to do well at school. He wants to do really well because he's got
yes,
aspirations,
yes. Can
but
I?
he doesn't understand why he's behaving the way he is.
Okay. And without throwing that line of the book, the body keeps the score.
I
You
love that
know,
book.
I've got the book like many therapists have, but I've never read it. And the reason why I've never read it is because the title itself speaks volumes to me.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
title that says it all. And
yeah. I mean,
until we go on,
you're absolutely right. I listened to that book first of all as an audiobook, and it was at a time when I had been in therapy myself. I had been through some real challenges, but it was the first book that I read where I understood why I was responding the way that I was. And it was one of those, when you're listening to something or when you're reading something and suddenly you've got these light bulb
Bing,
moments
yes,
pinging all over the place. And I had to switch and I had to go and buy the book because I found that I was stopping the car and rewinding a section and then bookmarking it. And then I was picking up my phone and I was jotting a note down in order to highlight something. It's like, no, I just need to read the book now. And it was literally about, I get it. I understand what's going on. And that's
yes,
informed the way in which I work, which is much more somatic in its approach. And that's why walk and talk is a part of it.
brilliant. Did you fall out of teaching? Did you fall out of love with teaching?
I didn't fall out of love with teaching. Um, I fell out of love with, well, actually, we were never in love at all. I had a disagreement with the headmaster,
Okay,
and we disagreed about our approach, in particular around one boy that I was working very closely with who had a lot of challenges. And the headmaster wanted to take one line with him, and I wasn't happy with that, and we butted heads. And effectively, over the next year, I felt very vulnerable.
yes, I've
Um,
heard that
my response
said
to
a lot
that,
of times.
yeah, Yeah, my response to it, which was my trauma response, in order to protect myself, was to work as hard as possible so that no holes could be picked in anything that I did, and that led to me completely burning out
I was going
because
to
I was
say,
working 18 hours a day.
that's not healthy.
No, no, it's
That's
not.
not healthy
And
at all.
I recognize now, knowing what I do, what wasn't healthy about it. But in the moment at that time, it was a survival response.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's a real shame because I did afterwards try to go back, after I was off work for a while. I did try to go back into teaching, sort of leaving the pastoral side of the job apart, and a lot of the responsibilities, leaving those to one side, and just go back in part-time into the classroom. But I couldn't do it. I was having panic attacks,
Okay.
and I literally couldn't teach anymore, which was really, really sad, because I lost a big part of my identity at the time, because I loved my subject, but also I loved working with the kids. And
Yes.
so when it coming back to what you were saying there, I kind of fell back into it through mentoring,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
that was the part of the job that I really loved. It was supporting people on a one-to-one basis.
Yes. Yeah, I'm smiling at that now. I think the thing for me with school is we have 9, 10 different learning styles,
Yeah,
but the education system is stuck on just 3 learning styles. And those children that don't fit into those 3 learning styles are cast aside, forgotten
yeah,
about. And
yeah. It's really frustrating, because it's not working for a
it's not
huge swathe
working.
of the population, and what we have is a lot of disaffected young people. And instead of actually looking at where the problems really are, you've just got labels being thrown,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and a medicalized approach and response, and all of a sudden that then becomes a part of their identity.
Yes.
And I remember I was talking with a young lad, a different young lad, yesterday, and I said, what do you want more than anything else people to understand about you? And he said, I want them to understand my autism. And when I picked it
Mm.
apart, and I asked the question again after about 5 minutes, I said, I'm going to ask that question again, and I want to see whether you give me the same answer. And he said, no, I don't want them to understand my autism. I want them to understand me.
Yes.
And that was massive. That was a massive shift, because he dropped that label that he's been given to just look at who I am. And that's all that I've done with him over the period of time that I've been working with him,
Yes.
is just
You, you
seeing him
see them.
as a young lad. And that's why I love the job that I'm doing, and that's why I love working with young people as well as working with adults.
Ofsted this week conflated autism with children being profiled with an increased chance of becoming extremist. What's your take on that?
Can I swear?
Yes, of course you can.
For fuck's sake. Um, I'm welling up on that one, actually. That really upsets me, because it's bollocks.
Of course it's bollocks.
It's got nothing to do with it. Oh, sorry. Now I've got quite. I find statements like that incredibly damaging, because all it does is isolates
You took the words out of my mouth.
young
You took
people,
the
and
words out of my mouth.
it's exactly what's happened. It's what happened a few months back with adolescents, which I equally found I found the response to that incredibly frustrating and incredibly damaging for young men. And it's yeah, let's just throw a label at a group of people, and let's put them over here and cast them aside and see them as damaged goods. and not look at the real issues underneath, such as with the education system, such as what's going wrong in society, such as why we don't have positive role models, male role models on the ground. The ones that are there, we don't have enough.
Yes.
And the ones we don't have enough male teachers, we don't have enough male youth workers, we don't have enough. And I'm talking about boys in particular because that's where my real attention is drawn to, and it's where I see the problems most vividly in front of me. So we don't have those. We don't have the youth clubs around that there used to be.
It's nothing that I've read, but just what I've borne witness to here in Liverpool. And I said, Liverpool 2008, we had capital of culture. As a city, we were starting to get off our knees.
Yeah,
and then we saw, the austerity kick in after what the bankers did, etc. We saw youth clubs close down. We saw youth workers working detached remotely in parks, etc.
Yeah.
And then we started to see a spike in crime, knife crime. We saw that whilst we saw the erosion of a police force there. Youth clubs were a safe space, safe space for kids to negotiate, to reason and rationalize their behaviors with skilled workers. That was taken away.
Absolutely, to learn to understand themselves, to be able to express themselves.
Yes, but also see the other side as well.
See the other side, to challenge and to be challenged.
Yes.
And that all happened within a safe space.
Yes.
And I just don't see that we've got enough of those spaces around anymore. And so what naturally happens is that you have groups of people looking elsewhere for them. And of course, where do they now look?
Gangs. Yeah. And they'll be in gangs and they'll protect themselves because that's what you're supposed to do.
They found a tribe.
They found a tribe, that's it, exactly.
Where they're being seen.
Yes. And they're prepared to make certain sacrifices as a result of that because they are being seen. And they're prepared to take risks as a result of that. But at the same time, when they lock themselves in, there's no getting out. Or if there is, there's consequences.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it must be frightening for young men in particular, not having the chutzpah, for want of a better word, to be able to say, no, I'll plow my own furrow. Because it can be scary being alone.
Absolutely, because they haven't got somewhere else to go to.
Yes,
and you do, but I mean, you do see it. You see some amazing projects. I think of some of the sort of boxing clubs and the work that they're doing. It is fantastic to see it, but it should be everywhere.
Yes,
and it should be available to all young people, and it is great when it happens, and I see it happening a lot with sports clubs, and whether it's a young guy who's really into his basketball and has got a great basketball coach, or a guy who's got a really great rugby coach, but then that rugby coach goes on and moves to somewhere else, and all of a sudden they become disaffected.
Yes,
because they've lost it, and it's so they were drawn in by the sport. Then they were kept in that family by an individual.
Yes.
But then that individual moves on, and they're lost again.
Yes. Going back to your point as well about leaders and role models, I think we've been let down badly at the top. I think we've been, regardless of what political persuasion, I think we've been let down badly. And when people can lie blatantly in front of you and you know it's a lie, and nobody challenges it, what does that say?
What message does that give about we care about you and we want the best for you? And instead, when we get a prime minister saying that a fictional program on television is a documentary and needs to be shown in schools, and shown as a part of a curriculum without any facility to really explore the very, very complicated issues that are underlying it, but also without the. I mean, we've got the research on incels. It was government commissioned research which says what the issues are that involve those young boys. They're not a danger to girls. They're not a danger to society. They're a danger to themselves.
100%. 100%. What gets you up in the morning?
What gets me up in the morning? A desire to make a difference to the lives of other people, because I know how desperately lonely it can be when you're in a dark place. And I want to help other people get out of that place.
Last year in the United Kingdom, 7,055 people died by suicide. 74% of those were men.
Yeah. 270,000 lives lost so far this year. One every 43 seconds across the world.
I can't understand why it's not. I can't understand why it's been treated as a specialist issue.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all. It's something that I keep cycling round to in my writing and in my posts. I put another post on Instagram this week about suicide. But we've got some amazing work being done on understanding the pain that underlies suicide through the likes of Susie Bennett.
Susie's brilliant.
She is a genuine star. I love her to bits.
Yeah, she's brilliant.
And she's done incredible work, as have the Suicide Research Lab at Glasgow University. So we know what's going on. It's well evidenced. It's well researched, and we know that these are issues that need to be explored, and yet there isn't the impetus from the top to do something about it.
Why do you think that is?
To be honest, I really don't know.
We know the financial cost for one suicide. It's equivalent to 1.7 million pounds. We know the financial cost. And yet,
we know the implications. We know the ripple effects of it that one suicide has.
We know that if you've been bereaved or affected by suicide, you're 80 to 300% higher than the general population.
Yeah.
We know all of this, and yet...
And that's why my answer is genuinely, I don't know why we're not doing anything about it as a society. But it's not just British society, is it? Look around. It's global. You look around the world. I mean, I was amazed, absolutely amazed when I was out in Kenya. In the Nation newspaper, there's a men's mental health article, weekly column.
Okay.
In the newspaper, which I was amazed to see.
Okay.
Within Kenyan culture, because I spent time out in Malawi and various other Southern African countries quite a lot, and it was never an issue that was discussed, but I saw it being discussed openly, and it's exactly the same situation there as far as the proportion of suicides that are men.
Stigma.
Yeah.
Stigma. Even the way we talk about it.
Yeah.
People are afraid to talk about it.
Yeah, and I get it. I really do get it, and I do think we've made massive progress.
But I will still contend, and this isn't an arrogancy on my part. Each of those 7,055 people that died last year by suicide, I personally wish I could have sat with each and every single one of them.
Yeah.
On a personal level. I say that to myself, because losing one person to suicide is one too many.
Yeah. It is. And I've worked with guys who have been there, who've been actively suicidal, and who've chosen to stay. One of the very early clients I worked with, when I finished working with him, said, "I just want you to know that the end of the first session that I had with you, I had already prepared a rope in my room to go back to and use." And I said to him, "What stopped you from doing that?" And he said, "When you came out, you shook my hand and you used my name. And I felt like I was being treated like a normal person." And it sometimes can be as simple as that. Just acknowledging the human being in front of you and giving them the space to feel safe.
Yes. Props to you. Props to you.
And I think that I can do that work because I've been there, because I know what it's like. And it's not that there wasn't anybody in my life. We know that there are events that increase risk of suicide.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I wasn't going through a divorce. I wasn't in financial upheaval. I had lost my identity though, because I wasn't because the job that I loved had been sort of thrown up in the air. But the shame that I felt is what stopped me from talking to my wife or talking to anybody else about it.
Talk to me about the shame, if you can.
The shame for me, the shame wasn't, I don't know an awful lot about really what was going on in my head at the time when I went to go and take my own life. I knew that I felt very alone, very empty, and worthless. And it was when I was on the very edge that I closed my eyes and I saw my kids' faces, and they were young at the time. They were really young at the time, and that's what stopped me from doing it. The shame is what stopped me from then talking to anybody about it. And so I came back from that place and still felt really awful, still felt really, really low, really down, but couldn't tell anybody.
Why?
Because I didn't feel that I could inflict that pain on anybody else. And that's how it felt. That I would, not that I would be releasing any of my pain, but that I would be inflicting it on anybody else.
And that's what I'm reading, but hearing is you didn't want to feel like a burden on anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that always pricks my ears every time I hear that. You didn't say burden, but you said inflicted.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's crazy. There was something you said before in terms of how we see ourselves, how we define ourselves. And I remember back in 2008, I was made redundant, and try as I might, I couldn't get a job anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, I had little ones then. And I remember applying to a pizza place for a role, and I dare say I was overqualified in that.
Yeah.
And I'm still waiting for a response now, but that's the joke. But the funny thing is, what you mentioned was about identity. Yeah. And I remember during that period of time that I felt as if I had lost my identity because I was no longer working.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, and I processed it and realized that my identity is not predicated by what role I do. My identity is predicated by me, who I see, who I look in the mirror and see.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Oh, really, really important. But I think that for guys in particular, it's really difficult for them to be able to take that step back and see it for themselves. And it's often only when other people reflect it back on us that
yes,
we can then see it.
yes.
And that's why therapy can be really powerful. That's why men's groups are really powerful.
I mean, there needs to be more men's groups out there. There needs to be more conversations like we're having.
Mm.
It needs to be normalized. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be, oh, shock, we're talking about suicide. Oh, shock, we're talking about masculinity. Oh, shock, we're talking about this, that, and the other. It should be a normal part of everyday conversation.
Yeah.
But there aren't sufficient spaces
No.
for that to occur.
And it's they've got to be spaces that work for those individuals, because there are amazing sort of national organizations now of the men's groups and men's circles, but they don't necessarily work for everybody.
No, they don't.
And
You're right.
so that's why we've got other ones which are more activity based, and so as well as having sort of the likes of Andy's Man Club, we've got men's sheds.
Yes.
There's I don't know whether you've heard of them in the Northeast. There's now men's pie clubs.
Okay, interesting.
Men make
Interesting.
pies, men eat
Many
pies.
pies. Many pies, yes, definitely.
That's it. But you've got men walking and talking. You've got the Edinburgh Blue Balls swim group up in Edinburgh. The more we have these places, these safe spaces for men to meet up together and just be themselves and to normalize conversations,
Yes.
the more we can make a difference for individual lives. And I remember I'm part of a men's swim group over in Windermere, and have been for about 3 years now. And I remember talking to one guy about it, who said, coming to this space and being able to just say on a weekly basis how I felt, and to do so honestly because other people are doing the same, saved my life. And he didn't talk to anybody about being suicidal about it, but it was just knowing that there were other people who were prepared to listen when he was saying, I'm having a really shit day.
Yes. And also to recognize and realize that he wasn't alone.
That he wasn't alone, that there are other guys who are also struggling.
Yes.
And that's what these spaces do. And whether it's I'm part of a couple of online groups, whether it's one of those, whether it's a face-to-face group, finding community,
Yes.
finding your tribe, finding
Yes.
a group of people who you can just be yourself with, where you don't have to put on a mask and pretend to be
Okay.
okay, pretend to be something you're not. You can just be the raw version of yourself.
What do you think's happened with society? Have we gone down a rabbit hole?
We've gone down a rabbit hole of individualization.
Yes. Yes. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Can we ever pull it back?
That sense of community, where people looked out for each other, where you had common interests, and whether it be through religion or through a communal approach to work, whether it be being part of a five-a-side group, a five-a-side football club, or whether it be supporting your kids on the sidelines. Those things which brought people together have fallen away steadily. Social clubs have closed down. And at the same time, people are working increasingly in a more isolated
Yeah.
environment. COVID had a huge amount to play in it, didn't it?
But I thought we had an opportunity with COVID to reset. And instead, all we did was just go from first to sixth gear, as it were, when we come out of COVID. But it wasn't for our benefit. I don't feel it was for our benefit.
No, but I think that was rooted in fear.
In what sense? Tell me more.
I think throughout the whole of COVID, we were living with fear. The message that we received in the media was one of was one where you are in danger, and if you don't toe the line, you are endangering other people, and that doesn't just go when you lift restrictions. That sits with people. And when you create that kind of environment, what it does is it isolates people, it separates people out, and they look after themselves.
Interesting.
And what was done to bring communities back together afterwards? Actively?
Nothing.
No.
Nothing. Nothing that I recall, anyway. I think that period of time the government showed poor leadership, poor leadership, and disinformation to a ridiculous level. And I always found it interesting when we had those 5 p.m. briefings and which newspapers were allowed to come and ask questions and which newspapers weren't allowed to ask questions. And that was telling of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's going to toe the line? Who's going to tell our narrative?
Yeah.
Because we don't want it challenged.
And I think the impact when we talk about, we talk about incels, etc., we talk about our children, the impact on them is going to be felt for generations to come. I mean, just going back to that point, I had kids in school during that period of time, and we were okay. But I used to think about how can certain families cope with not having a printer at home, can't afford the ink, having to print out all this bits of homework, etc., with no support from schools,
with no support, with all of the pressure that this is what you should be doing.
Yes.
And as you say, no support from schools, no support from society, no support from family, and an expectation to continue working.
Yes.
And no access to outside space. We were incredibly lucky because of where we live. I mean, I'm up in Cumbria, in the Yorkshire Dales. I've got my daily walk was with the kids, taking the dog up and onto the hills, and we wouldn't see anybody. But I remember being on Zoom calls and WhatsApp calls to friends and ex-pupils of mine in London.
Yeah. Yes.
And I remember a conversation with one guy and his girlfriend that had been in their late 20s at the time, I guess. And they opened it was during the summer, actually, because he's saying about how hot it was, opening their windows, and all they could hear was just ambulances up and down the roads outside. And so what does that do to you if you've got that, things like that going on? That just tells you all the time that you need to be afraid.
Yeah, danger.
You're in danger.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible where you go with these things, isn't it? You start firing off different ideas and associations. You realise how fucked up it is.
It is, and yet we do what we do.
We do what we do because
why? Go on. You give me an answer. Because we're human.
Because we're human.
I love that.
I keep coming back to it. I'm one human being working with another human being. That's all I'm doing at any time.
Yeah.
And I think that the more we can come back to that I've stopped looking at the news. I've stopped it. I've deleted the BBC and any newspaper apps off my phone because it doesn't help me. I find it just incredibly frustrating, and I don't feel like I can influence it. But what I can influence is the people that I work with on a one-to-one basis. Because even when I write to my politician about issues that are really, really bothering me, or about
do you write to your politician?
I do, and the last time I wrote to my local politician, I then wrote another message back to her, challenging her on why she hadn't addressed the first, and I got a very long response about how Parliament works, and a very condescending line about the issue being clearly very important to me. And it was obvious to her that I was very passionate about it. She didn't say anything about being prepared to support it. She didn't say anything about understanding why the issue was important to me. And she certainly didn't say that she was going to support the bill in Parliament.
Wow. Well, Stephen, what's your manifesto?
My manifesto: empathy and compassion. Connection and community.
Empathy and compassion, connection and community.
Do we need more than that?
No.
Because I think if we've got that, we've got the basis for
getting it right.
Change. Yeah, and it coming from that right place.
Yes.
When I make a decision on something, I come back to I've got a very strong gut instinct.
Do you listen to it?
I don't have much choice. It tells me very, very clearly when I'm misaligned with something. And yeah, I talk about my moral compass.
Okay.
And I think knowing what your moral compass is and being prepared to stick by it.
Sometimes you can find yourself being alienated, though, can't you?
You can, yeah. And that can be a lonely place to be.
Yeah. Being prepared to put your
head and that's what lost me my job, teaching.
Well, yeah, being prepared to put your head above the parapet and say, this is wrong.
Yeah.
We're not automatons.
No, we're not. No.
Would you consider yourself a little bit of a maverick? Is that a label? Is that an unfair label?
No, probably not unfair, actually. I'll give you a funny example. I really enjoy climbing trees at the moment.
Okay. Rather you than me, anyway. But
I love it. As a kid, I used to climb trees in order to escape, and it's where I found a safe space.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of processing work on that recently, and now I climb trees to find a different viewpoint and different perspective. But anyway, come back to the story. A few weeks ago, I was walking in the woods, and I climbed up a tree to find a different perspective. And my dog was sat at the bottom of the tree, just looking up at me.
I can just picture it now.
With his ball next to him, effectively saying to me, "Come back down because I want you to throw my ball for me."
Yes.
And a family went past, a little girl, a little toddler, with mum and grandma. And the girl, because she then looked up at the tree, looked where the dog was looking, and saw me, and then turned to her mum and went, "Mummy, why is that dog not up a tree?" And as they walked away, Granny then commented to the mother, "I noticed that she didn't say, 'Why is that man up a tree?'" I know, I love that perspective. I love that.
Absolutely. And doesn't that lends itself in terms of education as well? We drum out perspectives for children. We drum it out of them.
Yeah.
That's a great example. That's a great example. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's an example. I am a bit of a maverick because not many 55-year-olds are climbing trees when they're out on their dog walks. But more should be.
More should be indeed.
Or finding anything that brings just that bit of joy or pushes them a little bit or gives them a different perspective on things.
What takes you out of your comfort zone?
You mean other than things like this?
You know what? You've done brilliant, honestly. Nobody would
I actually
think.
feel really relaxed now about it.
Good. Good.
I think over the last over the last year, I've done quite a bit on pushing myself beyond my comfort zone. So the phrase "stand tall" actually comes from a men's retreat that I was on back in the last year, and at the time I was in quite a lot of fear over various things, and I was making myself very small. And the guys, just like I wasn't prepared to put myself out on the line for things. I wasn't really pushing stuff as far as sort of developing the work that I wanted to do. I was doing some writing, but I wasn't putting it out there. I was putting it on my own website where nobody really knew about it or read it. And through the work that I did on this retreat, I was able to put aside a lot of the stuff from the past. And one of the guys commented at the end of it, and he said, "I've seen this massive change because you are standing tall again." And then somebody else went, "Yeah, it's Stand Tall Hall," and so that's now become their name for me. And then I was on a call to one of the guys, and he was saying, "You need to rebrand, Stand Tall." And he's out in California, and he was talking about you can have caps, baseball caps with "Stand Tall" Hall written all over it, and that's never going to happen. But what they did was they challenged me to start publishing the stuff that I was writing about men's mental health and about some of the issues around men's mental health, and putting it into a more public forum. Good. And that's when I started putting the newsletter and exposing myself to that level where I actually felt in danger from a physical perspective. I felt like I was exposed. I felt like I was in danger. And so to do that was a real struggle for me. And then I remember I'd said to somebody, "I'm never, ever going to put my face on video on an Instagram reel." And then, I don't know, I think that would have been about September last year that I said that. And I've done it, and I can do it quite normally now. And sometimes I make mistakes and I don't give a monkeys about it.
That's okay.
But actually, and it doesn't nothing gets a massive audience, but I don't mind, because if I'm giving a message that resonates with one person, then it's made a difference to one person. That's all that matters.
Absolutely.
And so I'm quite prepared now to push myself that a little bit further, to put things that are a little bit more challenging out, because if it makes a difference to one person, to one guy, then I'm quite happy to do that. And so this video that I put out on Instagram and YouTube yesterday that talks about men's suicide, I had one guy commenting on my YouTube channel about it, saying there's no point of talking about it because nobody cares. And it's right, I'm going to respond to that.
Good.
Because I care.
Good.
And because unless you actually start to open up these conversations, the risk is that we'll lose yet more men.
Yes. I'd love to have you on again in the future.
I'd love to be on again in the future.
Without
We've talked an awful lot about walking and talking, have we, in nature?
No.
But we've pulled apart some really important issues.
Yes. Yeah. I don't want to rush talking about walk and talk, so I think we'll do that next time.
Sure.
Can I ask, if you had the opportunity to talk to your 7-year-old self, what would you say to him?
I would say to him, believe in yourself. I would say to him, you are enough. I would say to him, there are people out there who love you. You might not have met them yet, but they're out there.
And I'd hope you'd give him a bloody big hug as well.
Oh, absolutely. Hugs are so important. I've got an 18-year-old son who I hug every day.
I love that.
And always have done. And we'll hug in public. We'll hug at home. And we have our own sort of mantra every time we hug, every time we say goodnight. And it's physical touch and connection is so important.
Absolutely.
I was reading a report. I can't remember. I've tried finding it again and I can't, because I do this. I read something and then think, oh, I should remember that.
We do that all the time. We do that all the time.
I do that all the time. But I really want to find it again, because it was saying about touch and about the importance of touch, and making a comparison between, it was a study that was done on girls receiving touch and boys receiving touch.
Interesting.
And by the age of, I think it was 3, boys receive 75% less physical touch than girls. So what are we saying?
That angers me straight away. That angers me.
And so we need to be hugging our boys.
Yes.
We need to be, because that shows
that it's okay.
That it's okay. That shows that they are loved, that they are cared.
Yes.
That they are safe.
Yes.
And it's one thing that I always knew as soon as I became a father, that I wanted to hold and hug my kids every single day and hold them as close as possible.
Stephen Hall, thank you for your time on The Hurt Locker.
Thank you, Yinka.
I didn't even ask you who's the most important person in your life.
Me.
Because I knew you'd already. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yinka.
The Hurt Locker is a safe space for our guests to openly share their mental health experiences. If you have been affected by any of the content in this recording, then please reach out for support. If it is an emergency, dial 999. If you would like to talk to somebody today, then please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Stay safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.